For thousands of years, humans and dogs have had a close relationship. They have helped their owners to hunt and at the same time offering companionship and protection. Dogs have an understanding of our emotions, speech, and social cues without any training, whereas humans are still learning to understand their canine companions. Hi everyone, this is Parinita Senjit, author of Lil Leo. Today, in our Rescue Hero show, we have a retired police officer, Rie Pearson, who has a rescue dog named Pablo. So let's dive in and find out more about Rie Pearson and her furry friend, Pablo. Hi, Rie. Welcome to our show. It's lovely to see you here today.
Thank you for having me, Parinita.
Likewise, it's beautiful to see you. And, to begin with, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Okay, my name's Rie Pearson and I'm an author. I've written a book about domestic abuse in intimate relationships. The book is aimed at teenagers. I live in the northeast of England with my husband and my teenage son. And I have two older children who now live away from home. They're in their 20s. I don't know if you can actually tell, but we do live right on the seaside. So across the road, you can see people going by, cars going by. On the other side of that road is the sea. That's something that I've wanted to do since I was a little girl. From being like 6 years old, I always wanted to live beside the beach. So I've eventually managed to get to the seafront. What I do work-wise, off the back of the book, because I never intended to do anything. The book was meant to be something that I produced, and then I just would people would buy it or people wouldn't buy it, but they did. So I'm now working on workshops for parents who have teenagers to help them recognize abusive behaviors.
It's important, to break some of the old patterns of thoughts, ideas, behavior and mindset towards women, irrespective of the place, and which has been going on for generations. This show is all about the same concept applied to canine friends. Share yours and Pablo's journey with us.
Okay, I don't know if you can see Pablo. He's just there. He's lying on the back of the sofa. He's a bit of a cat. I'm sure he must have been a cat in a previous life because he finds the sunshine. The sun comes in here first thing in the morning because that's a south-facing window, and he lies either on the floor or on the back of the sofa. He likes to be on the back of the sofa, I think, so he can see out of the window. So he can be in his head. He's a guard dog.
That's beautiful.
He's protecting me from the postman and other deliveries.
I think he's doing two things. He's protecting you and he's getting some vitamin D as well.
He's getting his D, yeah. I was very reluctant to have a pet. When I was a little girl, we had two golden retrievers. And I know they were a big responsibility for my parents and my siblings, and they need regular exercise. And as an adult, I was always very reluctant to have a dog. I mean, I've had cats because cats tend to be urban tigers, really. Yeah. And they can pretty much be left to their own devices as long as you're there to feed them and give them some hugs. Dogs are I think, a bigger responsibility sometimes. So I was very reluctant. And my husband nagged is the right word. Yeah, it is. He nagged me. He's like, I want a dog, I want a dog, I want a dog. And I was like, no. And I said for years, no, I'm not getting a dog. When I was working in my previous career, obviously I was working shifts. I was out. Sometimes I would go to work and then I would not come home for a long time. And, having a dog wasn't because you've got to have that responsibility. So it was coming up to before the first lockdown for the pandemic, and we could see what was going on in Italy and in other countries. And my husband was really like ranking up this, I think we should get a dog. I think we should get a dog thing. And I thought, well, and it was really, I was thinking maybe a dog, because for your mental health, having a pet is really useful.
Absolutely.
Pets are healers.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking, right, if we're going to go, because I could see what was coming. I mean, as a family, we went into lockdown before the country went into lockdown. Because I felt that this is coming, we might as well do it now, like just do it now. So I contacted a rescue, Darlington Dogs Trust. I think Dogs Trust is everywhere in the UK, but the closest one to us is in Darlington, which is about an hour's drive away. And I said specifically I wanted a small dog, which doesn't shed because I'm allergic. And so they sent a picture of Pablo. At the time, I thought he's anxious of other dogs. And I always thought if I'd have one, I would have two. But he was anxious. Anyway, we said we would have him. The Dogs Trust have a really quick turnover. They neuter the animal when it comes in, and they'd like you to take the dog within 7 days. I was going to a company conference that weekend, followed by this, because this is like, oh, I don't want to have a dog because I'm busy. Right. But my husband was like, well, do this, and then we've got a teenager, and that would be fine. And I do work from home, but occasionally I do have to go anywhere. So I did have a conference in London, and then I was going to come back for one night, and then I was having a company conference in Belfast with my team. Wow. So I was like, so the Dogs Trust said, well, you have to take him within the first, you have to take him within that week. My husband had meant he was going to come to London with me. And I said, well, you just can't come. If you're going to get the dog, you can't come. And this is what's going to happen.
That's right.
So you have to make that decision. Do you want to be coming with me when I do business stuff?
Right.
Or do you want the dog so much that you know that you're going to have to forfeit those trips away and be at home with the dog? And he said, well, I'll be at home with the dog.
It's wonderful that, you both thought through this, and saw what was the responsibility that was coming in before you got.
Absolutely. And I think that you do have to make sacrifices. Well, say that you do. And at the beginning, you have to make sacrifices, but actually the benefit of having him far outweighs the sacrifices that we made.
That's so well.
But of course, I didn't know that at the time. Walk this dog at least 3-4 times a day, Dad, all the things that comes with it. And I was like, right, okay. But I made the decision after years of thinking about it. I thought more about getting a dog than I ever did about actually getting human children.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? It was like when you have your family, you're just like, oh, let's have a baby and it's gonna be great, and you just do it. When you're having a dog, you think about it for years before you make the decision. It's that to me is how big the responsibility is. Because children grow up, dogs are here. Like, I know they're not here for very long.
It's like a child
having a toddler forever. Like all of the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he does have to be played with.
Yeah.
So my husband stayed home. He picked Pablo up on the Thursday. I went to London on the Thursday. David went to get the dog on the Thursday. I came back on the Sunday, and then I flew out again to Belfast on the Monday morning. So I didn't get to meet him properly, really, and spend any time with him until nearly a week.
Oh, wow.
By which time he had completely imprinted on my husband. And that's apparently what happens with rescue dogs. They will choose one person in the house, and that will be their human, their number one human. Wow. And he loves my husband. Like, you can see when he looks at him, he's literally lying there. I know he looks like he's asleep, but he is thinking, David will be home soon. David will be home soon.
I recollect you mentioning that you changed his name after you got him. Is there any reason for that?
Pablo's story is really sad, actually, and I guess a lot of people find themselves in this circumstances. He was owned by a couple who separated.
Mhm.
They both worked full time, and so he would be left for 14 hours at a
Wow.
stretch. They both worked day shift full time, so he'd leave in the morning, come back in the evening. He would get shouted at because he would have peed or pooed in the house, and he didn't know his name. So when you said his old name, he didn't respond to it because he had never been really cared for.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah. He used to get called by his name there, and they used to shout at him.
Wow.
And he still, we don't shout in this house. I was a single mum for a long time, and there was no shouting in my home with my children. We do not do that. So my husband, I've only been married to David for 6 years. My husband has had to come into that environment where you do not raise your voice ever. And of course, this little dog, there was one day, because my stepson lived with us, he's now got his own place. My son shouted up the stairs. We lived in a Victorian house then. And he shouted for his stepbrother, "Are you going to the gym?" And he shouted up the stairs, and the dog just...
Oh, poor thing.
So, and we can't use gym. We can't say gym loud. So that must be...
They catch that energy. They catch your emotions when through your tone. They catch that, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So he obviously had been shouted at, and he had been shouted at by his name.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be better to completely change his name, because I didn't want to be calling for him on the beach by a name that he had associated with a previous time of abuse.
Right.
And actually, that was a decision that we just made. We would change his name because of that. And I said, I don't want him to associate me calling him by that name with past trauma. But then when I did some research on it, that's actually the best thing to do for rescues.
It's like starting a new chapter, isn't it, for them?
Because all the words that they use, like there are things that, like the name Jim.
Yeah.
I'm saying this because it's just there. That obviously has an association with fear.
So what are the obvious differences you have seen in Pablo after he's become a part of your family?
Oh gosh, it took him about 3 months, I think, to believe that we weren't going to give him away.
Oh.
So he was very, very cautious, very nervous, very anxious for about 3 months before he started to relax.
Oh, poor thing.
He was very aggressive towards other dogs. So we've had to teach him, because a dog's aggression is not because they're aggressive, it's because they have fear.
I think also they hold memories about their past, and it depends on how they have been treated. Yeah. Naturally, it's like humans, right? To erase that from your memory and then start putting in some good new, experiences. It takes time.
So when we first got him, we would take him for a walk and he would bark at other dogs. And so I met a former colleague on the beach, and she has 3 dogs. Oh, and wow. I was telling her about it, and she said, just let him off the lead. Just let him off. Because I was fighting to let him off in case he did anything. I mean, he's not very big, but he has got the spiky end, He's got a spiky end, and dogs have got teeth. And I was really worried. And she said, don't do that. She said, just let him off. She said, he's picking up on your anxiety about this. Just let him off. And honestly, he just loved it, absolutely loved it. So I did train him to come back. So I pretend, usually I'll take a ball down the beach, but I'll have a ball in my hand. And even if I haven't got a ball, I just put my hand up in the air.
Oh.
And he comes back because he thinks I've got a ball.
Lovely. Oh, that's lovely.
So he just imprinted on, like, she's got a ball and he's like ball daft. He's like crazy, love balls. So he does that. And since that moment, he's been absolutely fine.
Wonderful.
She's
That's
not afraid of other dogs. My daughter and her fiance, I got them a dog. Bought them a Shih Tzu pug cross just before we went into lockdown.
Oh, wow.
He's the funniest. He's like a Shih Tzu, but with like a goggly eye, like a pug. You know what I mean?
Oh.
And he came to stay at the weekend, and they get on really well. They were both on. They were both on my bed. They were both like snuggling in on the bed on Sunday morning, and it was like, you know, look at the difference with these little guys.
Yeah.
But look at that, you know, he's just.
I know.
Like,
I mean, beginning how he was scared of other dogs, and now
he was just really anxious.
Dogs Trust, the largest dog welfare charity in the UK, has seen a 39% increase in phone calls during pandemic to hand over their pets, hand over their dogs. Now, are we at the start of a worrying trend here?
I think a lot of people, when we went into lockdown and they didn't know how long this was going to last, got a dog. And now people are being told to go back to the office, go back to work, and the dogs are being left.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's really sad.
It is.
Really sad. But on the other side of that, if people are giving the dogs to the Dogs Trust and other people who are better prepared to look after that pet, then possibly that's a better thing for the pet.
I think it's during pandemic also, many didn't think through the what is the future holding for them or how it's going to go, and it was more of an impulsive buy. Oh, we have time in hand, let's go for it. But then later on realized two things. One, that it's a huge responsibility, and they couldn't cope up with it, whether it's physically or financially. It isn't responsibility, and that's when they started abandoning. And then now when things have started opening up and people are back to their normal life, and that's another reason why they are not able to cope up. So yeah, I think the thought process was slightly missing. You know, what advice do you have for our audience with regards to pets, you know, where our pets feel safe in our world?
Oh, your pet is a member of your family. So, you know, and dogs are a pack animal. They need to be part of that crew. So Pablo does go in a crate when he sleeps. He has a crate in our room.
Wow.
And the reason for that is my brother, so my brother son, my nephew, his wife, her dad breeds Cocker Spaniels. He's like the Top Gun dog breeder.
Oh, wow.
And he creates his dogs. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, when they're young, obviously they're out and they're with you. And if I go and sit on the sofa now, Pablo will come and sit with me.
Right.
He needs that contact because he's a pack animal, and they do that. He says, but what happens when they get older? They need somewhere that's their space.
Yeah.
So they can have peace and quiet away from the family and away from any noise or whatever's going on, because when they're older. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't then go, oh, the dog needs peace and quiet, I'm going to have to start to teach him how to be in a crate.
True.
So you have to crate them when they're young. And then
he feels secure in that space, isn't it?
It's his private room. It's his private space. And on an evening, he goes in there by himself. It's like bedtime, I'm in there. So he wants that quiet so he can sleep. And then he comes out first thing in the morning and we have a snuggle before we get up.
Oh.
But he needs that space so that when he does become elderly, that's his space. So I was like, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Everything you plan, everything you organize, you need somebody who's going to be looking after the dog. Now, we're very fortunate because we wouldn't need to put him in a cat and dog shelter or anything like that. And I'm not sure he would appreciate us doing that, but we do have grown-up children.
Right.
Who will, and my stepson literally lives maybe 300 yards away. So if we ever need to go anywhere, he would look after him and have him and
Wow.
and
No,
do
I
that.
think it's important that, as a family, we think through every step, and understand the responsibilities related to the dogs, because they are a living being. They are not a toy, or it's not just something object that you've got home.
Yeah.
And they have emotions, they have feelings. They, as you said, they are the pack animals. So, they want that family support and that secured feeling.
It's all our responsibility of training them. Like, you have to, and also I wish people wouldn't, because Pablo's really small. People will be walking along with their children and they'll go, oh, look, a little dog. And then the child will come and try and touch the dog. I'm like, this is a strange, like, my dog doesn't live with little people. He doesn't really, he's really unsure about small people.
Yeah.
So people assume that because he's a little dog, he's going to be all sweet and fluffy. Well, he's still got a spiky end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, if somebody came to me and tried to put their hand on my head, I'd probably bite them.
Yeah. Because they feel insecure about it.
Yeah, it's like, what's going on? Like, it's just inappropriate, but people do that quite a lot. So when I see people with children, I kind of put them on the shorter lead and I'll just say, we'll just keep walking. It's not because I'm unfriendly. It's because he's not used to, look at him. He's just gorgeous.
Well, I think it's important that when we decide to bring, pet home, it's time, the time with regards to training them, giving them that attention, affection, because the more secure they feel, they will, they'll become independent and, everything will fall in place. And you're absolutely right. It's the time, it's socializing, allowing them to socialize.
That's really important for dogs.
Yeah.
Allowing dogs to see and spend time with other dogs.
Thank you so much, Rie, for sharing your thoughts with us on the show. And I'm sure our audience are going to find them very, very insightful. Thank you once again to you and Pablo.
Anita. Thank you. And Pablo says hi.
Oh, he's cute.
He is cute. Yeah.
Pets are like little children, except they never grow. Irrespective of which pet we have, emotions are the same. The emotional balance between humans and our pets needs to be natural. We need to create a safe and secured world for them. Thank you all for joining today, and until next time.